And I think that's part of how a hereditary royal family works. You grow up knowing that you're going to inherit some of these roles, and you will start to take some of the burden even during the life of your predecessor.
Right. All right. Well, Jonathan, it's always a pleasure to see you. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. It's always good to be here.
Good. Well, we got a lot of royal news to get to. And of course, this big story that the Queen is back on her feet, feeling better. She is conducting virtual meetings, meeting with her family. So what have you heard? How is she doing?
Well, so we've heard now that after the Queen, of course, had that brief stay in hospital in October, we've seen less of her out and about. And then, of course, when she was diagnosed as having COVID, people got very worried about her. And she cancelled even some of her virtual appearances, you know, the online stuff she'd been doing with video calls and Zoom. A bit like this, actually. And so that has been a concern. And so people have been pleased to hear that she's had a couple of virtual audiences now, and that she's been back on light work like that. They have always said that she carried on doing light duties, but these were not visible to people and not visible to the general public. So I think people were starting to worry. Maybe that's why they've let us know that she's obviously feeling better enough now to be doing just a little bit more.
Definitely.
It's so funny to think of the pomp and ceremony of going to Buckingham Palace, and then you get there and you're in a room with a computer screen. I think I saw those photos today. Why are they so secretive about her health? You know, why don't we sort of get more information on that?
Yeah, well, I think certainly you're right that the honor of meeting the Queen must feel a bit different when you go and you meet like an iPad or something. Yeah. But I think everyone's got used to that in their day-to-day lives. Like, we used to have meetings much more often, all of us. And so perhaps it still feels very special to go to the palace. I'll tell you, having been there to the palace, it's a fantastic place, you know, and you go into the drawing room or the state rooms there, and you can really feel a sense of importance just being there. So obviously not quite the same thing if you don't meet the Queen in person, but still there's a lot of the pomp and circumstance surrounding it. And I think everyone understands these days the need for doing things remotely sometimes. Why are they so secretive about her health? I think it's got a few reasons. On the one hand, the Queen has every right to be private as an individual. And when it comes to health issues, I think that the palace want to protect her privacy in relation to any conditions she might have. She's someone in her 90s, so I don't think it would be that strange if she did have some health problems that may be even longer lasting than, you know, having a cold or a flu that passes. So when it came to the COVID, I think they didn't want endless commentary every day about every twist and turn and how she was. I mean, if you think back to when then President Trump had COVID. Obviously, it's a bit different because he's a president and he's running the country. But there was minute by minute, day by day speculation over what drugs he was on and whether he had been given oxygen or not, whether he'd been on a ventilator. And then his doctors tried to keep it quite secret. The difference between that and a member of the royal family, such as the Queen, is that her role is slightly different. She is our head of state, but it's more ceremonial than it is really a power position. Mm-hmm. And so I think it's reasonable that she's allowed that privacy. And they give us a small amount of information as they feel they need to, but that's about it. And otherwise, I think most people respect her right to heal and get better in private.
Right. And, you know, obviously a lot of the members of the royal family have had to step up during this time. How have Charles and William stepped up? Did they lean on each other during these times as well?
So I think that it's been really interesting to watch that over the years, not just over the last 2 years during the COVID pandemic, but also generally during the Queen's later life. There has been more activity shared out among the family, among the working royals. And even before Meghan and Harry left the country and left the working royal family, they also shouldered some of that burden. Mm-hmm. I think that's been a feature of the later part of Her Majesty the Queen's life. And that is to say that as somebody gets older in any family or in any business or work role, they may allow other people to step in and do some of the activities that require slightly younger body, maybe even sometimes a slightly younger mind. The Queen stopped doing international travel some years ago, and then those sorts of trips were shared out among other members of the family. So it is that we've seen the same sort of thing happen during the lockdown and then during the period of ill health that Prince Philip had before he passed away, and now during the Queen's COVID and other health issues that she has been reported to have had since October. So the others are taking on more of the duties. And in fact, I think it's quite good for them as well, because Prince Charles has always been a hardworking royal, and Prince William too. But the more they get to do now, the more the baton is being handed over in such a way that they're getting used to some of those roles, or when they themselves are monarch. And I think that's part of how a hereditary royal family works. You grow up knowing that you're going to inherit some of these roles, and you will start to take some of the burden even during the life of your predecessor.
Right.